The word gangster gets thrown around a lot, especially in a fight game. With how frequently it's mentioned, we figured it was worth looking into and see how well gangsters, or sometimes self-proclaimed gangsters, really can scrap. In this video, we're going to be looking at gangsters in every sense of the word, from people with alleged gang affiliation, to people who grew up around it, to people who are just gangster in the more colloquial sense. We got a star-studded list of fighters to look at. So if you're wondering how well gangsters really can fight, we got some answers for you. It's worth noting, we'll only be taking a look at fighters who've competed to at least somewhat of a professional level. Watching gangsters street fighting can be fun, but the answer to if they can fight or not is no. A two-stripe white belt is smoking any of them who hasn't trained. We'll keep it entertaining with some high-level stuff instead.
If anything, I feel relieved, and I'm confident if I wanted to, I could have knocked them out.
When Mike Tyson fought Mitch Green, there was a lot more to it than bragging rights. Mike Tyson and Mitch Green both grew up as street kids, and with that came ties to gang life. It's reported that Mike Tyson was affiliated with multiple different gangs as he was growing up. Ultimately, he'd become one of the greatest boxers to ever do it, but you already know that much.
Well, you want to fight somebody? Fight me, baby. Holyfield, sausage nose, baby. You want to fight me? Fight me. George Foreman, want me to commit some homicide? Fight me, baby. Punch drunk old fool. I'm gonna kill me somebody.
Mitch also has some affiliations with rival gangs. So this isn't just a fight between people who claim they're gangsters because they're tough, but rather they were legitimately involved in gangs. His opponent Mitch was a rather talented boxer himself. He was ranked above Tyson, but Mike was clearing the competition and earned the opportunity to fight up the ladder. Mitch not only accepted it, but he took full advantage of the opportunity and limelight to trash talk Iron Mike.
It's that anticipation has to matter with his career, period. Always aggressive, right in front of his man. Now we see some head. Looks like Green is off balance when he throws his punches.
When it came time to fight, this was vintage Tyson, but minus him knocking his opponent's head into the bleachers within the first minute. Tyson was able to land early, often, and consistently. Mitch had a hard time using his height and reach due to Tyson's movement and pressure. Anytime Green would throw a strike, Tyson would slip and rip. Mitch would have his moments in this fight, even knocking out one of Tyson's teeth. But this was a clear win for Tyson. However, despite winning the bout, Match would have his excuses, and the rivalry boiled over into a later altercation.
Mitch kept ranting and raving, and Mike stood up because he had made contact. And Mike said, look, do not play me close. In other words, back off. Don't get that close to me.
I was nervous. I hadn't had a fight, like a street fight, in 7 years. And I was scared, and I was getting paranoid because he was so close. He kept getting close to me. So I defended myself.
Gang culture is very territorial. So when Mitch heard that Tyson was in the area, he had to pay Mike a visit and try to stir the pot. Mike Tyson claims to have warned Mitch multiple times to think about what he was doing, but things did get physical. A few witnesses have varying stories about who hit who first and how things went, but something we can verify is that Tyson broke his hand on Mitch's face. Green's eye was swollen shut and he needed 5 stitches on his nose.
And I didn't see his punch coming, and he did not knock me down or nothing. I saw him do like this and run. He ran.
Who threw the first punch here?
He did. He sucker punched me.
Again, we're not sure exactly what happened, but safe to say that in this feud, Tyson is 2-0. What's your favorite Mike Tyson fight? Let us know down below. Darren Till is a heavy-handed fighter who, despite a somewhat rough fall from grace, had a rather solid stretch in the UFC. As we can see from this sparring footage, he's a talented striker who spars hard and can absolutely crack. Prior to his UFC beginnings, Till was getting a little carried away with street violence. A brawl outside of a pub resulted in him being stabbed and nearly bleeding out.
some lad come behind me and stabbed me, and I didn't feel it. I had a white t-shirt on, and so I'm just like hitting everyone in my way. And this lad comes up and he stabs me once, and then he walks away. But I haven't moved or anything, I'm just fighting, I haven't felt it. And then he comes back around and he's like, fucking hell, this fucking kid's still fighting. And he does it again. And then, mate, for like, I'd say 10 minutes after that, I was still fighting. I was fighting with the doorman. Do you know what? Just to like put it in a nutshell, I fucking battered everyone in view. Like, I couldn't be stopped. People were smashing bottles on me head and everything. The doorman were fucking even cracking me and I wouldn't go down. I was just went psychotic.
Darren was then urged to continue his training in Brazil so he could get away from the violence that he kept finding himself in the middle of. With that, he rounded his game out a lot more and has some pretty solid Portuguese speaking skills. Did you know that Darren Till was getting into scraps like that? The thing with MMA media is reporters can get a bit too opinionated, and when dealing with fighters, there are repercussions for that. This reporter for Full Send's MMA branch made memes of Nate Diaz's teammate, and of course, Nate's not going to let that slide. Growing up in Stockton, the Diaz brothers had to stand up for themselves at a young age. As a result, we got some of the most chill, funny dudes who are also down to scrap at any given moment. This reporter learned the hard way and frightening way that Diaz is always going to stand up for his team. Where do you place this on the top 10 list of Stockton slaps? Comment below and let us know. While you're at it, you should hit that like button. Let's bring in the new year with some solid support on these videos.
This is a slugfest! I told you! And Thompson is rocked by Emelianenko! And rocked big time! And
Alexander Emelianenko, brother of Theodore, who's one of the best ever to do it, is a scary guy. This guy never reached the heights in fighting that his brother did, but he was still a fighter worth keeping an eye on. It's rumored that he's been involved, to some extent anyway, with the Russian mafia, and that his tattoos resemble some Russian nationalist and extremist insignias. While that's been disputed, this knockout over a big scary dude was not. Alexander got bum rushed but kept his cool and made his opponent pay for coming at him recklessly. Of course, we shouldn't praise the guy too much. He has done some time behind bars for some rather detestable reasons.
here we go! And Thompson right away pulls into Emelianenko like a house on fire, and this is a slugfest! I told you! And Thompson is rocked by Emelianenko! And rocked big time! And it's over! And Thompson...
Ooh, big overhead right.
I mean, are you amazed?
I feel that it'd be illegal for me to not include Mark Hunt, the guy who's thought of when thinking of the most gangster move in fighting, and that's the walk-off knockout. Mark had a few superpowers, the first being his incredible knockout power. The second, his ability to know when a fighter is done just at the touch of a chin. You'd rarely see this guy follow up with shots he didn't need to. However, when he needed to, he was on it with urgency. I had to include Hunt on this list. Just go watch some of his highlights and tell me he's not super gangster for those walk-off wins.
Ooh, big overhead right.
I mean, are you amazed at fine?
This guy is as gangster as it gets in terms of the stereotypical gangster look. He's doubled his body weight just in ink alone. But that gold belt adds some pounds that everyone could be envious of. With that being said, Ben Wen wanted that belt for himself. I mean, this feels like it was straight out of Hollywood. Most people I know with a lot of tattoos are the coolest people ever. This guy, though, is an absolute doorknob. Ben kept his cool and saved the urge to put his knuckles on the opponent's chin for fight day. And that's exactly what he did. Just moments into the fight, Ben was able to land a shot to put his opponent out and created one of the most viral knockouts ever, let alone for a small organization. Do you not think this was the perfect outcome for this bout? This might be divisive, but yeah, I'm a Tate brother hater. Of the many ways you can use the term gangster, I mean it here as in he's a criminal. Whether their heinous crime allegations have any weight to them whatsoever is still up in the air. But their crimes to the minds of the next generation is worth the beating this guy got in this fight. The Tate brothers have some decent kickboxing chops, but as a grappler, I love watching the strikers get drowned out by someone who suffocates with jiu-jitsu and wrestling. Tate took this fight on short notice, and that's worth applauding. But what's more impressive is the submission win. Do you favor strikers or grapplers in matches like this one? Let's take it back to some brothers who are actually likable. Enter Nick Diaz, who's one of the most gangster dudes to ever do it in the sport. We're using the term gangster kind of like how the UFC qualifies contestants for the BMF title. When thinking of the baddest dudes to ever fight, Nick Diaz's name immediately lights up. Diaz was able to weather an early storm in his Pride debut, land some pitter-patter shots that depleted his opponent's energy, and eventually locked in one of the rarest submissions in MMA history. Cool, right? Also, he did it all while having enough weed in his system to suggest he was high before the fight even started. Most people get high and fight the urge to order pizza. Diaz gets high and fights world-class athletes. Is this not the most iconic Nick Diaz fight? If not, what is? Ian McCall, seen here with the sick facial hair as always, found himself in a gang at a young age. Though he outgrew the gang and the random acts of violence he committed while affiliated, he kept that mess around and find out mentality throughout his career as a fighter. His opponent, McCall, is absolutely a talker. He was running his mouth and Ian just laughed, which upset Cop. A slap snapped McCall into go mode, and he lands a slap on Manel, then slips the follow-up from the brash opponent. This fight would end up being very anticlimactic, ending via cut from Ian rubbing against the ropes, which, as an Ian fan, was a bummer. Were you watching when Ian McCall was a big name in the division? It's so easy to circle back to the Diaz brothers when we're talking about gangsters of the sport. Here's a very, very young Nate Diaz taking on a grown man in his first ever, somewhat sanctioned fight. The Diaz brothers both have really good boxing, but especially in the early portion of their careers, it was the unique and effective grappling skills that set them apart from the rest. Nate mounted this man and was able to secure an armbar with relative ease. Even at this young age, Nate was concise with his movements and had people cheering for him. And as we know now, he's become one of the biggest fan favorites of all time. What's your favorite Nate Diaz moment? Let us know.
Heavy leather. Nick Diaz, you just see his hands. Boy, they have power.
Nate's older brother, Nick, was also hitting some slick submissions throughout his career. Here he is fighting a man named Joe Hurley. Hurley had a lot of emotion going into this fight due to personal reasons. Diaz was able to tap Joe out with a Kimura, but not before snapping his arm out of the socket. Diaz then consoled his opponent. This shows that the Diaz brothers are above cool. Whatever they choose to do, be it celebrate a win or be nice to their opponent, seems to be the right thing. These guys set the standard in any given situation for what the cool response is.
First round. But Nick Diaz, he's got it.
His left hip, and he was able to really crank down on the guillotine. Even though he has the arm in there, I think he felt that he had the forearm completely in on the throat.
Cub Swanson is one of the most wholesome, fan-favorite fighters that the UFC's had the pleasure of working with. However, he did have some rough patches in his upbringing and did find himself associated with local gangs. Nonetheless, he channeled any fuel in him toward fighting, and it really paid off. Not only is he a former title challenger, but he's UFC Hall of Famer, one of the most unique strikers to ever compete in the sport, and without a doubt, must-see TV. He's such a likable guy, and he really put his aggression in the right place when he found martial arts. From gang activity to one of the most gangster men to become successful in fighting, it's Cub Swanson. Some of you may be able to relate, but there are those uncles on Facebook who share photos of random, mildly tough-looking guys with a quote that says something like the real tough guys are the ones who speak least, or something generic and bland like that. Those posts make me cringe. It's kind of what Ricky Bandejas did here. He was quiet but talked his trash after getting the win. James Gallagher is very talented, but the Irish fighter maybe tried a bit too hard and too early to be as brash as McGregor. For that, Ricky hit him with some sweet chin music and put him out in embarrassing fashion. Bobby King Green is another fighter who grew up around a lot of violence and found a way around becoming terribly affiliated himself. He found martial arts and is, without a doubt, one of the most gangster dudes in the UFC right now. Anytime, anywhere, this guy is always down to scrap, and he has one of the most gangster styles to boot. Hands down, mouth running, and fast hands. Bobby Green is as exciting as it gets if you're a fan of the striking side of MMA. Additionally, this guy is just pure entertainment. His media work is almost as exciting as his fights. He has the tattoos and the jewelry, which we often classify as a gangster aesthetic. But it's his actions that are gangster. Taking short notice fights against the best of the best and willing to throw down anytime? Green is that guy.
By Khamzat
Khamzat Chimaev isn't just a grappler. We had to include him in this list because, well, gangster fits this guy to a T. After this fight, we saw Khamzat fighting in the UFC, taking 2 fights in 10 days, only eating a few shots and landing an alarming amount of his own.
By Khamzat
Not just in the ring, but outside of it. Chimaev is down to go anytime. He's an absolute animal inside the cage, and one would assume he'd be a bigger threat outside of it.
Record, you better be recording.
You want to fight in July?
July, let's fight in July.
Yeah.
Come on, let's go. London?
Yeah, we're good.
Don't say that.
You gonna be ready?
I'm being ready.
Okay.
Let's get money. Let's get money, bro. All right. What is that guy?
Let's find out.
See what's up? Come on, bro. You gotta bring the money. Money go. Go make the money.
Fighter meeting.
Now we'll be looking at some straight-up gangster moves in fighting. Love him or hate him, and I lean toward the latter, Gordon Ryan is the best no-gi grappler in the world, and he has some pretty gangster moments. Not only does the guy win, but he makes it look easy against the best of the best. And if that's not gangster enough for you, he predicts the way he'll win by writing out the method of victory, putting it in an envelope, and then setting it on the commentator's booth for them to read after the match. In this example, Ryan finishes his opponent with a triangle choke. Really, it was an inverted triangle and Kimura combo, but just drawing a triangle is a lot cooler than writing that mouthful out there. Do you follow jiu-jitsu? Is there anyone out there who can beat Gordon?
Gordon Ryan pulling right under the leg. Straight for a heel hook. Immediately gets the tap.
For some reassurance as to how good Gordon Ryan is, here is him competing against a fellow black belt. The black belt who Gordon is competing against could field the biggest guy at your local Planet Fitness, and here Gordon beats him in just 11 seconds. Heel hooks, and really leg locks in general, are no joke. If you have an ego and don't want to tap, you'll be leaving with some ligaments not doing things that ligaments, are meant to be doing.
Straight for a heel hook. Immediately gets the tap.
You know what's cooler than taking a TKO win via doctor stoppage? Fixing your opponent's arm and then getting the win afterward anyway. The lanky fighter here overextends with some sloppy technique and pops his shoulder out of place. That would usually be the end of a fight, but not here. His opponent, who could have got the win then and there, decided to do what the ringside physicians couldn't and pop his arm back into its socket. The fight continued, and our gloved-up body mechanic got the win. Have you ever seen anything like this happen in a fight before? This is incredible. Never been seen before, unlikely to be seen again. While in the mount position, which is super advantageous to stop a fight, the top fighter stops pursuing the finish to put his opponent's mouthpiece back in place. Nice, thoughtful, gangster, cool in more ways than one. This is a highlight that a lot of people will look at for some time and think, yeah, that was pretty tight. Seriously, stuff like this never happens. Pretty cool, huh? As we can tell here, there are a lot of ways to use the term gangster. Some good, some bad, and, well, I don't know where this lands on the spectrum. Like, it's a jerk move, but it's also kind of cool. This is the perfect heel move. I'm sure he got some boos from the crowd after this and ruffled a lot of feathers in the promotion. However, in doing so, he's got a lot of people tuning in to watch him either replicate the knockout or be on the receiving end of a head kick himself. Again, I'm conflicted, but one thing is for sure, and that this was a gangster move for better or for worse. That does it for the video. How'd you like the content? Let us know down below. Be sure to like the video and share it. It really helps out the channel. What do you guys want to see next? Let us know. Subscribe and hit the bell icon to make sure you never miss a future upload. Catch you next time.